Hello, everyone, and hope everyone is doing well today. Today is May 8th, and this is the sort of risk we have today. It's definitely sort of uptrended in the last few days here, especially across um, eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, especially. Um, but we can see the slight risk here from northern Alabama, from central Tennessee, all the way to far southern West Virginia, northern South Carolina, including Charlotte, Nashville, just outside of Jackson, just outside of Atlanta, and but also including Chattanooga here. The slight risk today across those regions. It's going to be more of a hail-driven event. This is our hail risk here, and we have that significant hatched from Nashville, Chattanooga, to like Boone, North Carolina. So, very interesting sort of setup for this region is especially sort of rare for um, the more mountainous regions of Tennessee and North Carolina, but um, we do have that 15% hatch there. We do have a nice wind risk as well. Downburst will be sort of a issue today with the clusters we'll have and sort of that slight risk outlook as well. And then tornado risk, there is a non-zero risk here. However, it doesn't look great. But how there is that risk, so just be on the lookout on the warnings and whatnot. So that's sort of our risk area today. We'll sort of look at our surface map here, see what's sort of going on here. And we have our sort of slowly moving very sort of weak low pressures up across the Ohio Valley here, but our main low pressure here that will be moving sort of east northeast today. I'm located kind of right over the Memphis area. Um, Kind of has a sagging warm front here, but this will gradually move northeastward as the morning evolves, and as this moves east northeast very slowly. Um, it's gonna sort of open up the warm sector for this sort of region here, and yeah, create that perfect sort of location for severe storms to sort of pop up. So I'm definitely gonna be on the lookout, um, especially like I said, sort of parts of central Tennessee all the way down through western North Carolina here. Kind of look at our satellite imagery here. We can store definitely see a lot more sun across far eastern Tennessee and a lot of sun across western North Carolina. Some patchy clouds, a lot more cloud cover across central Tennessee. Sun breaks sort of maybe forming in there, but nothing really much as of now. Um, but destabilization definitely taking place across eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina here. This seems to be more likely the sort of best area for those hail clusters today. So let's sort of look at our surface observations here. You can see sort of our mid 50s here within the mountains here, some low 60s across central Tennessee and some upper 50s across sort of western and central North Carolina here. Let's Here's our HRRR model here. Doing the mountains fairly well, doing the low 60s across Tennessee fairly well, mid 60s across sort of that west central NC area. So doing well with the temperatures, HRRR. Let's look at our NAM model here. NAM model doing just as good as the H4 with their temperatures here. Pretty much spot on here. Let's look at our dew point here, see how our moisture is doing compared to our surface observations. A lot, mid 50s really across much of NC here, and then kind of lower 60s across the Tennessee, upper 50s. So let's sort of look at that here. NAM likes to be a lot more bullish on the moisture and, the Cape and whatnot. So, but however, doing pretty well. Despite that, doing very well. With the placement of our dew points here. Check our HRRR model here, and again, not doing bad at all. Could be sort of underestimating by a degree or two across sort of central NC or even western Tennessee here, or eastern Tennessee, excuse me. So, however, fairly good. Kind of spot on, maybe a degree or two off in some locations, but nothing crazy at all. Nothing crazy at all. So next, I kind of want to sort of dive into sort of some ingredients here. This is the bulk shear here. This is a triple R model. Um, this is our bulk shear to 0 to 6 kilometers here. This is at 1 p.m. here. You can see a nice sort of cluster of bulk shear across central Tennessee, much of southern Kentucky, southern West Virginia. We can see this nice sort of um, patch of bulk shear here, about 40, 45 knots, 35 knots in some places, but pretty nice. As we move on to storm initiation time should be around 3 p.m. So if we go to about 5 p.m., we can see a lot of the risk area is at least under some 30, 35 plus knot bulk shear, but some places at near 40, 45. So um, definitely going to be um, enough substantial shear in place, especially I think a lot of this will be sort of in our upper part of our atmosphere, about 3 kilometers or higher. But shear does look fairly well. Let's look at our NAM model here, sort of compare. This is around 2 o'clock, and again we can see that nice little sort of patch of bulk shear around 40, 45 knots, sort of in the coal field section, parts of central and eastern Tennessee. So we move on sort of through the evening here, at around 6 o'clock here. We see the NAM has a bit more shear in place, especially across Virginia, Kentucky, West Virginia. But in our risk zone, again, around 40 knot, 35, 40 knot winds. Again, substantial enough for severe weather activity. So let's look at our kind of to sort of um, further analyze this here. Let's look at our sort of higher up in our atmosphere at the 500 millibar level here. And for reference here, that's let's just get a random sounding here. 500 millibar is about 5 kilometers up, maybe a little bit further than 5 kilometers up in our atmosphere. So let's sort of you know, get an idea where those winds we just saw, those bulk winds, bulk shear winds we just saw, get a better idea where they're at in our atmosphere here. So this is the HRF here. Ensemble mean again takes us 5 short range models and their 5 previous runs and combines them into one sort of mean run here. So this is about 2 p.m. here. Again, we have a nice sort of area of 40, 45 knot winds across sort of southern Tennessee all the way up through southern Virginia. Kind of a thin sort of area, but definitely we have those winds there. So we move on sort of in the evening here. We sort of get, you know, um, chopped up some and lowered to about 30, 35 knots. Um, as the storms sort of move eastward, they'll um, sort of eat up, I guess, most of this shear already, but we'll still have areas of 35, 40 knot winds sort of ahead of this main sort of clustering across central NC, sort of northern South Carolina. Again, just sort of enough to keep that threat sort of there. And something else to mention here, we can see a nice little pattern here. We see a nice positive tilted sort of trough here with our low pressure sort of in southeastern Missouri at this point here, and we can see sort of that positively tilted trough with at the base of our trough that sort of jet streak. But yeah, most of these winds again are going to be sort of at our 700 millibar to 500 millibar level, so higher up. Um, Definitely going to tap into those higher up drafts that do occur today and really create that hill threat. So let's look at our surface based sort of cape. Look at some of the instability we're going to be working with today here, and this is H triple R on 2 p.m. here, and we can see across west central North Carolina, really all the way through much of Tennessee. 1,500 joules per kilogram seems very likely across much of our risk area here. Um, Definitely that's high enough for severe storm development, and it keep them sort of around. This is sort of later on into the evening, 5 p.m. We can see sort of our convection bubbling up. Again, 1,500 joules per kilogram cape around our risk area. So instability sort of stays around until sunlight ends around 7 p.m. That's when sort of the instability will start to die down. But the HRR is showing about 1,500 on average compare surface-based cape. We're going to compare that to the NAM model here. So by about 1, 2 o'clock here, again, pretty good across comparison across West Central North Carolina through Eastern Tennessee here with the Cape values, but once we get into Central Tennessee, around 2,000, 2,200 joules per kilogram is possible according to the NAM. As we move on to the evening here, yeah, a lot more bullish with the Cape, 2,500 joules per kilogram across West Central North Carolina through Central Tennessee, about 1,000 higher than the H triple R. Do want to take another look here. This is our RFS model. Has done fairly well this spring so far with severe storms. So we get another model output here. This is 1 p.m. Really on par with the kind of in between actually the H triple R and NAM. We do have pockets of 2,200 plus joules, but a lot of the area is sort of 1,500, 1,700 joules per kilogram Cape here. So sort of the middle solution here of Cape here so far at 1 p.m. Um, so move on to the evening. Again, that convection sort of eats up some of that Cape. But again, some spotty, 1,000, 1,500 joules per kilogram surface-based Cape there. So This model here seems to be sort of in the middle of the road here, so sort of take that um, in mind here when we look at our reflectivity, which we'll be doing right about now. So this is kind of what the radar will look like throughout the day. And I do want to sort of explain another key factor in today's setup. By 2 o'clock, we don't really have much convection across our risk area here. Um, but by 2 or 3 o'clock, we're going to see our bubbling up of convection start. I'm going to take a few soundings though, sort of in the Knoxville region area. And we can see some nice cape in our 3 kilometer range up through our 9 kilometer range here. Surface cape doesn't seem great. And we can kind of see that sort of with our 3 cape here, our near surface cape, lower atmosphere cape, not great. Our lapse rates, though, however, surface to the 3 kilometer, um, around 9 degrees Celsius per kilometer. Definitely supportive of some hail. These other values look fairly normal for this time of year. Um, However, with the sort of increased lapse rates here and the increased cape, um, 2-inch hail is definitely possible in this sort of setup I see here. Also, um, have the shear values here, and we can see those shear values definitely more at the 3 kilometer um, section here of our sounding, and we can sort of see that also by our wind barbs here. So definitely a nice sounding here. Let's go a few hours in the future, and we can see um, our 850 to 500 millibar lapse rate sort of increase some. Our 3 cape increase some. Our cape increase some. Um, Again, sort of that nice layer between the 3 and 9 kilometer range. Again, just supportive of that sort of clustering setup and possible 2-inch hail. Let's take another sounding sort of western NC here. And you can see here a lot of our capes situated between the 3 and 6 kilometer range here. We do have a really nice lapse rate here between the surface and 3 kilometer range, 850 to 500 millibar range, also fairly high. Um, However, just not enough sort of surface cape to sort of promote a lot of large hail at this time, and that's going to be contaminated. Try to get another sounding here real quick. Gotta reload. All right, here we go. So again, sort of same sort of sounding here. Our surface cape not great. Slap rates look fairly well though. Um, and our 3 kilometer to sort of 6 kilometer range looks very good. So yeah, so any sort of elevated storm that does take advantage of this instability, um, clearly will have that sort of 2-inch plus hail risk across west central North Carolina and sort of east central Tennessee. Um, I think that your best risk is going to be kind of across Tennessee up to the mountains here, sort of western central NC definitely has that risk. Um, but we'll have to just sort of see how that pans out. Let's sort of compare that with the NAM here. This is about 2 or 3 o'clock, and sort of convection hasn't even popped up on the NAM. Let's take a sounding sort of near Knoxville region here, and we can see the increase in Cape. A lot more surface Cape. Lapse rates look really high compared to HRR. Um, a lot of fat Cape here across sort of our 8 kilometer down to our 2 kilometer range. Again, sort of indicating to me more of a clustering and sort of a large hail threat here. And as we move on here in the evening, 4 or 5 p.m., take sort of a sounding in western North Carolina here. Again, nice surface Cape here, nice mixed layer Cape here. Nice 3 Cape, nice lapse rates, not as impressive, sort of in Tennessee. However, again, large hail risk does seem possible with this sort of setup here. Especially if, again, if these storms really take advantage of that instability, tap into that shear. Um, Definitely going to have a large hail risk sort of across this region here. Let's look at the RRFS here. Sort of just look at the reflectivity real quick. Um, See where that spits out. It does have sort of a convection bias here. Yeah, but by about 4 o'clock, we can see some nice clustering across the western central NC. Some nice clustering across sort of southern Kentucky, northern Tennessee. Move on sort of the evening. East central sort of Tennessee is under the gun, and then sort of west central NC continuing to have that risk. So, the RRFS definitely has that more scattered sort of widespread events compared to like the NAM. HRR is sort of more scattered and widespread. Yeah, definitely of that Eastern Tennessee risk as well. So again, that's sort of the main risk today, sort of Southern Kentucky, Southern Virginia down through um, Western NC, sort of East Central Tennessee, Central Tennessee, the main area right through in here to watch out for large hail. Something else I kind of just want to point out and mention here is the sort of increased rainfall we're going to have in our southeastern regions as well. So this is a ensemble model here, the GEFS. This is through Wednesday, 7 a.m. And we can see a nice sort of 2 to 4 inch range from much of central South Carolina down through much of Florida, coastal North Carolina as well. Nice 2 to 4 inch range here. We can look at the EPS sort of run and kind of compare. Again, nice sort of 2 to 4 inch range across much of South Carolina, much of North Carolina, much of Georgia, much of Florida. A little bit further west in our sort of bullseye and rainfall. Um, but much needed rain for our southeastern states here. Definitely some flash flooding possible, severe weather, stormy weather possible. Um, Really this next week or so. So enjoy the sun while you can if you do have it across these regions. It'll get cloudy and rainy fairly soon. But until then, guys, so here's our risk area again. But until then, guys, I will talk to you guys later and update you as needed.